Hey everyone, guess what? We are here with Artie Shepherd. Who is that, you might ask? Uh, he is in a band now called BEINN. It's BEINN, which is fucking fantastic with your friend and mine, Chris Enriquez, who is in every band ever. Uh, he's also, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the owners of Saint Vitus.
No, he is not.
No, you, I mean,
Oh, me,
not
yeah.
Chris.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. No,
Yeah,
Chris can join the club. Why not? It's okay.
yeah, why not? Um, Artie was also in Instruction from the early 2000s and Mind Over Matter in the early mid 90s.
90s, yeah.
Yeah,
And about 20 other bands.
makes us
I've
feel
been in
old.
as many bands as Chris is in right now.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
It's hard for musicians to not constantly create. Hi, kid. Um, she just popped her head up. Was like, ah,
What's wrong? I, I can't do anything right now. Is mom gone? Just drink some water. Charlie, drink some water. Sorry. Uh,
all good.
um,
Yeah. So kids, dude, they're great.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And
How
dogs.
old is she? Oh
She's
yeah,
11.
I remember when mine were there.
Yeah, it's a good age. It's the, they still want to hang out with you and they don't think you're that uncool yet.
But they are starting to challenge a little bit.
Yeah, yes, big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's,
it's like pre-puberty, but like, old enough to know better.
yeah. Yeah.
Old
10
enough to
going
think
on
that I'm
72.
old enough to think that I'm old.
Yeah. We
Dad, you're
are.
old. Yeah, oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
Fucking back is hurting. Like,
Stop. Come on.
so I've only heard the two singles of Ben.
Oh, dude.
I, I
Chris didn't
cannot
send you
get
the
enough.
record? The fuck? He's
I know.
fired.
Yeah. Chris, do better, dude. Come on.
What
Um,
the hell, man?
I was gonna email him this morning and be like, "Hey, dude, will you like shoot me that record so I can listen to it?" And I got sidetracked with all this
Uh,
other shit. Um,
Life, you mean? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so so really like Run to me is like I cannot get enough of that song.
Oh, awesome, man. That makes me really happy because that song was a song that I wrote specifically for this band. Like after we started jamming, I like was kind of calculating the strengths and weaknesses of the band members, which, there aren't many weaknesses. And the lyrics were very appropriate for my life at the time with Vitus and the stuff that went down over there. But yeah, I'm really super into prog rock, and so is our bass player Eric. And we were late night drunk friends. It's kind of how we met at this local bar that I eventually bought. And we would listen to Yes and Crimson and like everything at like 4:30 in the morning and like just talk about it endlessly, painfully. We were just punishing each other endlessly. But he played in a band called Adam's Castle, which is not that well known, but is a post-rock band that from Michigan that was just incredible, like just epic prog, crazy. They had this keyboard player who plays Fender Rhodes and like makes all these crazy sounds with it. So he's adventurous, and that song was definitely written around that idea. I also wanted to do something that wasn't so verse chorus, like just straight ahead with all that, and it kind of takes in like all of our influences and throws it into one song. I feel like it's the main Ben song, and it hasn't gotten as much attention as the first single, Passions of Great Misfortune, but because that song is way more of the moment shoegaze style. It was like my
Yeah.
foray into writing a Smashing Pumpkins song because they don't really write them anymore. So I actually tagged Billy Corgan a bunch when we first put it out, but he didn't respond. So what are you gonna do?
No, but he was thinking the whole time, like, damn it, Artie, stop. Like, stop tagging me in this shit.
He's probably gonna have me arrested.
Yeah, my online stalker. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so I'm super. I guess my question is, what's the name of the album? Because it comes out 11/17 on Mind Over
Yeah.
Matter Records.
Oddly enough, on Mind Over Matter Records, which I have no association with, um, it is called Perpetual Architecture. And it's a title that I kind of came up with, and I was like, like all of us are perpetual architecture in our lives and all around us, and it's just like constant building, constant design, constant redesign. And also I live in New York City, so it's, perpetual architecture, honestly. And it was also a thing with Vitus too, like we were, at the time we got closed down, that's all we were doing was dealing with architects and plans and like money that was being just thrown away on dealing with all that stuff. So it's very fitting. Everything is, it's like it's weird being in bands at this age. Um, I feel like it has a lot more meaning than it did when I was younger. And I know that like it's a weird thing because you get better as a songwriter as you get older, which is I don't know, but you don't get the
Wisdom.
same attention because you're not, yeah, it's wisdom. And it's also like my ability has gotten better. I became a better guitar player, but it's better songwriter. I'm a better bass player. It's just like I think in arrangement wise, I've listened to more music that's influencing me. I've gotten better at recording demos, which is incredibly helpful. Um, because of the technology has moved so quickly that you can do anything. The stuff that I used to have to go to a studio for in the 90s, I don't have to
You
do
can
that
do it in your
anymore.
bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and do it really, really quickly. So it makes things a lot different. It also, it also can make it less challenging because there's nothing better than being in the room with everybody and throwing ideas around because I don't want the band to be just my ideas. I've always said that my superpower is surrounding myself with people who are better than me. So it's like I'll be the progenitor of the idea, but I want to get in a room with people who can do better with my ideas, and then I'll take them and be like, okay, the song over here, and it would do this, and would do that. And there's a few songs on this record that I wrote completely and was just like, okay, you play it like this. But then there's most of them were kind of like, okay, do what you want to do. And Gensterbloom played drums on the record. Chris didn't play on it. And Jeff's in Coalesce and Casket Lottery now, and he was in Small Brown Bike. He's in another band with me called The Twin, which is also on
No
Mind Over
way.
Matter Records. I know, I did. It's like ridiculous. When he left New York, he was playing in 7 bands. And like luckily when he left, he was willing to keep rehearsing with us and playing with us, but it wasn't going to work out. He's still in the Twin, which we don't play live at all because he lives in Kansas City. But yeah, I mean it's a pleasure and a privilege to still be playing, honestly, and to be playing with guys who are just as developed, and like they have honed their skills over the years so that they can work quickly and get on stage and I don't have to think about it ever. I've been really lucky in that sense as well, but I do truly feel like my superpower is surrounding myself with people who are better than me, whether it be in my bands or in my businesses or whatnot. I always have people around me that are really strong partners.
That is such an important thing that I don't think enough people put the weight on, enough weight on. They want to be, I know so many people, their ego gets in the way. They want to be like, I'm going to surround myself with people who will listen to me. Whereas I feel like if you can know, first know your weaknesses, especially in business, right? Because when you know your weaknesses, you can plug people in there and it ends up being just a stronger chain altogether.
Yeah, yeah. Like in Vitus, I hate booking shows. Fucking hated it. I've always hated it. I've done a lot of it, and I did it in Vitus. It's always reluctantly, but I kind of felt like you have to be a little bit sociopathic to do it because it's just like it's like having a party and not knowing if anybody's going to show up. And like I can't deal with that. And I don't ever want to put bands I'm friends with through that. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, can we do the show? And if I have any thought that, the show might not be as good as you want it to be, I don't want to be involved. It's like do it through somebody else. Like, I'll just send it off to somebody else. Like, you book it because I just like I don't feel comfortable because I know how I feel about my shows and like I want this, this, and this, and I want people to show up and it's always whether you tell yourself or not, like you can tell yourself to you blue in the face that yeah, it's not an issue, it's not like I don't care if nobody shows up. You do, you always do. It's like
Absolutely.
and it's never good for your self-confidence to play a shitty show in front of nobody. Because then I happen to I noticed over the years that I write the most when I'm just off a tour or I'm just out of the studio. And those are two points at which I'm incredibly self-confident because I've, been playing and I've had the feedback and like I know what works and what doesn't. So I'm immediately creative when I'm in that situation. And studio is the same thing. Studio is like you get to hear yourself really well. I always call the studio Christmas because it's like you get to go home with something. It's like a gift. It's like, oh, I recorded this and I get to go home with this little thing that I can listen to. And it's like, it's great. So, uh, I don't know. It's just it's a weird thing, but having people around you that can fill in the gaps of things that you're not particularly great at is very good for your own career, selfishly.
Yeah. Well, do you find it like when you write something and you take it to like the band and go, "Hey, this is what I wrote." Do you um I was going to say, do you find they make it better, but I feel like your answer is going to be, well, of course they make it better. That's why we fucking play together.
Yeah, I mean, but there are because of modern technology and how good my demos are now. I do get a little bit of demoitis, and there are certain songs that I'll be like, "Sorry, man, like, could you just play this?" I used to do this thing, which my old bandmate Joe Grillo, who was he was in Instructions touring band, and he was in Godfire's Man, and he was in Gay for Johnny Depp with me. And he told me that I do this thing where it's like, that's awesome, but could you try it this way? And like, I'll just keep saying that until I get my way. It's like, it's incredibly passive aggressive. But like I don't do it all the time, but apparently I used to do it, 20 years ago. I was pretty bad about it, but not anymore. But, I, I'm just over it. And like I want that I love playing in bands. I love being with other guys, or other girls or other people in bands that I can just work off of. I want to see them play my idea and I want to play their idea. Like in the Twin, I don't write any of those songs. I just write leads and I sing backups. And I think the band is fantastic, like and whatever I can add to it is a pleasure. Again, like I said, like I'm very grateful that I'm still playing and I'm still doing all these things, regardless of how little money is involved, which is like negative money. You basically pay to do this. And, you to get into the corporate algorithm is not really a possibility. Is this podcast in the corporate algorithm? Or
I don't know. I
I
just
gotta
fucking
go. I gotta go, dude. I gotta go. If
like
you're not in the Disney algorithm on YouTube, I don't know anything to do with it.
I,
No, it's,
I don't. It is now that you said Disney. It's going to pop up hashtags Disney.
yes,
Like
let's do it. Let's just keep naming big companies. Apple,
look
Apple.
at
What's a big pod?
Amazon.
Well, yeah, Elon Musk. Let's talk about him.
Oh
Yeah,
no, no.
it's my new obsession is the corporate algorithm. I want to know how to get into it. Like, I think it's similar to when I was on Geffen. Like I saw the way it worked, where like you were in this like you were the gatekeepers, like at the time there were gatekeepers. Now the corporate algorithm is the gatekeeper. It's like
Yeah.
that to get into that is really like how you do it. And it's the same as it used to be. It's just all about money. How much money can they spend? And
No,
it's like things like Spotify are all owned by the major labels because it was the only way that they could get the licensing for the songs for nothing. And it's like, it's just everything's a fucking scam. It's all a scam.
100%. Like I'm so with you. That's one of the things that I've argued since I was probably since the 80s is like, everyone's like, "Oh, we need to get on a major label." And I'm like, you do realize that if you do it yourself and work, you're going to work your ass off, but you'll have to sell, a fucking eighth or a tenth of the amount of records and you'll make so much more fucking money doing
Yeah,
that.
but you know what, dude? There's only one Fugazi. So, and there only ever will be one Fugazi. I don't, I agree with you, uh, but I don't think it worked like that for everybody. Um, and if it did work for you very much in the 90s, incredibly, it was way easier for independent labels to get attention.
Yeah.
Um, Nowadays, it's just, you kind of feel like sometimes you're just throwing your songs into the ether, and it's like, what's the point? But there's always a point. There's always a point to art. There's always a point to creating. There's always a point to the socialization factor of being in a band, to going out and playing shows, to having the visceral experience of playing live music. I don't have any aspiration for anybody hearing this stuff. Like when I write it, when I'm sitting there, it's all kind of coming out of nowhere, and it always has. I think I
I
was
don't
lucky enough to be around during a time in the 90s that a lot of my shit got attention. And I was in Walter Schreifel's band in 1995 and 96. When I broke up Mind Over Matter, he broke up Quicksand. We started a band together. That was on Island Def Jam. But I was riding on his coattails, basically. And he was riding off of the Civ record, which was huge, which he wrote. Um, so it's like I had early experiences with all this stuff, and I saw the kind of the way it worked, and I went to back to the indie world because I basically had no choice, but I wanted to go back to major label land. Like I really, really did because I felt kind of alienated in the emo scene, and I did that to myself a little bit, but is like we were too rock for for emo, and we were too indie for rock. And eventually when Errortype broke up and Errortype 11, that was the band I was talking about, broke up and we started Instruction, we got signed to a major label within 6 months. And that was like my big shot. That was the big time. But unfortunately, the timing of that was god fucking awful because it was like, right when digital was taking off and 2003, 2004, our record came out in 2004. And it was just, the labels were all a mess and nobody knew what the future was. And Jimmy Iovine cut all the funding. I mean, I could talk about this for fucking hours. It's like, I had some amazing, incredible experiences that like I could write a book about, which I've been trying to. Not that I think anybody was interested in it, but, I think I'm a pretty decent storyteller. And I got a lot of them. It's like just that whole new metal world was a world that I was didn't belong in, and but I was thrust into it head first.
So, like you speak so highly of your time at with the major labels. Like,
Yeah, I speak highly of it only because it was like it was a it was an experience, and it was my experience. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's what I remember meeting Jay Robbins in the late 90s, and he was like, "Don't sign to a major label, man." He's like, like it screwed us up so much, or Jawbox, and I was like, you know what, man? Like, I need to have my own experience because I think everybody has their own, experience with these things. It's like it's just the nature of the beast. Not everybody's gonna get screwed. Not everybody's gonna feel like a fish out of water, but you need to be there to actually experience it. And I would say like my experience with a major label was um sort of tainted by the fact that that band got popular in England before we got signed to a major in America. And our signing to a major in America ruined all the popularity that we gained in England. It ruined it. They wouldn't let us tour over there. They didn't release the record for 2 years. It was so
What the?
stupid. It was just fucking stupid. And it had a lot to do with like Universal at the time absorbed DreamWorks. So Geffen and Interscope got like 25 rock bands all thrown onto their roster right before our record came out. And it was a shit show. So they had like Sparta and they had uh fuck, I
I
can't,
love
oh, Rise
Sparta.
Against. Rise Against was the band that we were pitted against. I had to sit in meetings with like, well, Rise Against is going to sell 50,000 out of the gate, and I was like, what? So you'll keep your job for another 2 weeks? Like, fuck you. Like, it was just like, it's so lame. Like these A&R people were making so much money,
Oh
and
yeah.
like they were all like, and the only reason they kept their jobs is by not signing bands. That was like the key in the 90s. Because once you took that plunge and you failed, you couldn't bury your dead. So it was it was a whole different
Wow.
world, man. It was a whole different world.
That's so wild. And it blows my mind. Like it blows my mind when you're a band is has popularity somewhere and they're like, well, we're not going to put marketing there.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh, and we basically created that. I put $25,000 on my credit card, which took me 10 years to pay off. And it was like, and we basically lived in England for 6 months because we had management over there, and we toured with all these big bands over there. And like we had a really big booking agent, and he had one rule when he picked us up. He was like, you can't say no to anything. So I was like, all right, I was working at a stock photography agency at the time, which had a London office. So I was able to work out of the London office when I was over there, it was crazy. And we would tour with these bands who they were all on major labels. A band called 100 Reasons, a band called Hells for Heroes, a band called Funeral for a Friend, a band called Biffy Clyro, who are now huge. Um, and like that was with all in a 6 months period. We did all those tours, and it was just wild. They would have a tour bus. They get picked up in London, take the tour bus to a show like 2 hours away, and then go back to London, go back home in the tour bus, and get dropped off at home. I was like, you guys kidding? It was ridiculous. The only time they didn't go back home was when they got past like Manchester or Leeds because it was too far north. And then like when you got to Scotland, obviously you didn't come back. But it was so funny. Like I'd be like, you guys could never tour America. I was like, you realize that they're like, oh, we got to drive all the way to Glasgow. And I'm like, that's like driving to Buffalo for me. That's in the same fucking state. Like, like I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's like
yeah.
that's like one show. Like you're talking about like a whole 2 week tour. You know, it was just wild, wild experience. But we did a lot of work, and basically the way I looked at Geffen as not giving us an opportunity to go back and holding us back from releasing the record was was wasting like 100 or $200,000 worth of press,
Yeah.
essentially. Which we were like, we were in Kerrang and NME and Melody Maker and all those magazines, and like it was big, it was huge, and then we did Reading and Leeds. We played the first Download Festival. We played on the main stage at Download, which is at Donington, which was insane. And then we played a second time that day, opening for Metallica, which was a secret. It was just outrageous, incredible. And then when we signed to Geffen, they were like, "Well, we're going to break you in America, and then you can go back to England." But in the meantime, with all of that, they didn't release our record, and I mean, it literally took a year and a half before they released our record in England. And it was all soft release bullshit. And the label in England wouldn't like, they were just like, we can't do anything without yes from the American part. It was just politics and bullshit, and a lot of people who don't exist in the music industry anymore because it's like I feel like the people who are left now, because there's so little money in it, are here because they love music and not because they want to be cool and be backstage. It's like the president of Geffen Records at the time, he had inherited like $300 million or something. His family was like super rich. This is a great story. I'm gonna tell this story real quick and then we can get back on my bands.
This
But
is fun
so
though. This is like
he
fun
was
shit.
oh dude, this is all shit like he so before he was at Geffen, he was the manager of Limp Bizkit. So he was in with like Peter Katzis, like all these like um big new metal guys. Danny Wimmer, who does all the big festivals in
Louder Than
America.
Life, Sonic Temple, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fucking sick, amazing. Like he so this guy's name was Jordan and he managed Limp Bizkit, and when Limp Bizkit did a video for the Fate, the George Michael cover, I believe this was the time, and they were on the Family Values tour, the Korn, the big Korn tour. And before the record came out, well, it was when the record came out, the week of, at the time you had to like chart on like MTV was considering videos that would go into rotation, and you had to kind of chart on the Billboard charts to even be considered to have your video go into regular rotation, which is a huge break, huge. And what my understanding is that he went and had people all over the country buy 250,000 copies of the first Limp Bizkit record, put them in whatever, put them in warehouses, they weren't going anywhere. And therefore they charted in like the top 20. MTV picked up the video for regular rotation, and lo and behold, we had Limp Bizkit for the rest of our lives.
Oh, yeah. So I heard a little different story about Limp Bizkit and like their whole rise to what fucking Limp Bizkitness, whatever it is. Um, their limpness.
I'm
I
gonna
don't
use
even know
that,
what
Limp
it is.
Bizkitness.
Yeah. Um, I think, when Counterfeit like came out, they paid some DJ on the West Coast or a radio station on the West Coast. They paid him like 5 grand to play X amount of times at key points, like during the day, like during the morning rush and the afternoon rush, and so other stations started picking it up. But I think you're like what you're saying is that came a little later for them,
Yeah,
huh?
oh, I'm sure there was all sorts of payola involved. I mean, back then, there were very little rules about things, and payola comes in various forms. But like in
Right.
the 70s, I was managed by Bill McGathy, who's one of the biggest radio promo guys at Indigoot is his company, but he's been in the business for like 50 years, and he would tell me stories about him FedExing Coke to like DJs and stuff. Be like, oh yeah, it was easy in the 70s. You just like, FedEx some Coke or some weed or some pills or whatever, and they put your record in regular rotation. And it's just like, wow. He's like, well, we weren't allowed to pay him technically, so that was a way around it. I was like,
There you
okay.
go. All right. Like that's so wild. But
Yeah, it is, but it's like it's rock and roll lore, and
yeah,
I think Limp Bizkit would have made it regardless. They were the right sound at the right time. And I don't know, I don't even know if that story's true, but it's what I was told. I can't prove it, but it's a good one. It's definitely a good
yeah.
one.
Well, and they were out there grinding too, which I think, today I think there are a lot fewer bands that are working as hard as they had to in the
Well,
80s and 90s.
okay, when you talk about that, well, yeah, because you can reach people on the internet if you get in the corporate algorithm. But but yeah, I feel that that's true, but like back then they were signed to a label. Somebody was financing them.
Yeah,
You can't to break a rock band costs a lot of money. And this is why, like when I was on Geffen, why Jimmy of Iovine cut all the rock band's funding, except for a couple. He didn't cut Papa Roach. They didn't cut Rise Against. I could name them all, but like they basically it was too expensive to break bands, and they had just broken Ashley Simpson and 50 Cent. And so he was like, well, pop and hip hop is really easy to break. The bands don't have to tour. We don't have to give them $5,000 worth of tour support a week. It's just easier because it's only one person or they got to rent the band or whatever the fuck. And it was, it was a different world. But nowadays, to do it yourself, what do you got? You got to get the bass player has to have a trust fund. Somebody's got to be financing it because you can't just go off and tour for forever. It's just way too expensive. I mean, I did it for years, and
yeah,
I lived on ramen noodles at, whether I was on tour or at home. And I ate shit forever, and that's fine. If you like, you're focused on that and that's what you want to do. And I see a lot of hardcore bands doing that these days, and it's great if you can make a couple hundred bucks a night and keep going if you live in your parents' basement. But just don't move to New York City, because all you're going to do is pay rent. I always told everybody that. I was like, I'm from here, so I grew up on Long Island. And when I lived at my parents' house, I was able to go on tour all the time, but getting off of Long Island is a total pain in the ass, like 2 hours sitting in traffic. Finally, you make it to Pennsylvania and you're like, holy shit, we made it. And it's 15 minutes to get anywhere else in the country. But it's like, but to get off Long Island, it takes forever. But yeah, man, it was just like, it's, it's really, really hard, and it's really, really expensive. And I'd always be like, I'd meet people, and I was bartending for years. And all these, I was bartending in Williamsburg and Greenpoint, like these really hip neighborhoods that people would move to. And it would just be like, why did you move here? All you're gonna do is pay rent, dude. All you're gonna do is work. You're not like, what are you gonna do to tour? Do you own a van? Like nobody owns a van in Brooklyn. Like, you're gonna rent one. You know how expensive that is? Or like if you do own a van, you got to park it every day. There's alternate side of the street parking. It's a total pain in the ass. You get like thousands of dollars worth of tickets a year. It's just, I was like, or where you from? Des Moines? Stay in Des Moines, live in your parents' basement, rehearse in the garage, and you can go to the East Coast, you can go to the West Coast, you can just tour forever. Because that's really what it takes. You just got to get in
Yeah.
people's faces. It's funny because like I remember Dave Grohl made some comment about like, I wish there were more bands that were like, around and, like toured and like, stay in the garage and do all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you're so fucking gone from reality of what it takes. It's like who's paying for all that? Who's paying for all
Yeah.
that? Somebody is, because it's not free.
Yeah.
And
Well, he does.
there are, I mean, and Dave's an awesome guy. Like Nirvana played my place, it's
I
like,
know, dude. I'm
eh,
look just real quick on that. Nirvana was my fucking band. Like when Bleach came out, I was like, oh my God, best thing ever. And everyone hated me for it. Like, oh, they suck. This is fucking terrible. It was the unmastered album. So then Nevermind hit, and they're like, the best thing ever. And I'm like, fuck you guys. They were great fucking then. Um,
yeah, I
how
think
the
people came
hell?
around to it. I love In Utero. I think it's funny because I didn't even listen to In Utero when it came out, because I was just like, Nirvana was so ubiquitous in the culture that it was like, why do I even have to buy this record? It's like I'm just gonna hear it over and over again everywhere I go. And 25 years later or something, I put it on. It was on Spotify, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to this. And I listened to it. I was like, this is fucking awesome.
It's a
It's a
great
great
record.
indie
Yeah.
record. A great indie record. It's like heavy as fuck, sludgy. Like the riffs
Yep.
are super sludgy. It's like, he was just like just zoning in on the Melvins and like going for it. It was cool. It's a really cool
It
record.
was,
But
dude, it was
I
weird. And I think that's what the world needed at that time. It was so nice to have that something so fucking different, like really come out within utero. Um,
yeah, I mean but it was basically the scene that I was involved in, just
yeah.
going to everybody else, which was awesome, in a lot of ways, because I guess without Nirvana, I wouldn't really be sitting here talking to you, because I probably wouldn't have continued on, past my hardcore days. I would have been smart like the guys in Snapcase and gone to college, or some of the other bands that, like Rob Fish from 108, who's like a CEO of something or other. It's like this is fucking wild to me. I'm like, well, I was like out sludging. I was like, should I have stayed in college? Like I guess I blew it. But it was cool. Like during the in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, like all the bands in New York were getting offered major labels and major label deals, and like really like getting a chance to take their bands to the next level. Is at the time it was, it was inevitable that you were going to do it. It
Yeah.
just was. So
So,
anyway,
so
Nirvana.
yeah, I'm like, hold on, my question. I fucking started telling the story. How the fuck did like that end up being at Saint Vitus? Like,
It was a it was like they're known for the Foo Fighters were doing shows at pizza stores and shit like that. And
Yeah,
like
like the
they kind of
garage tour and all that shit.
yeah, they kind of just do shit like that because I think it's fun for them. And um, they wanted to do a show after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, which is was in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. We had gotten a call a week before about it, and they were like, "Can you guys think you can do it?" Blah blah blah. I was like, it was what was crazy about it is that I got a phone call at like 9 a.m. or like whatever, like 10 a.m. that morning, and it was from a LA number, and the guy left a message, and it was just like, "Hey, this is JC from LA." He said he was from LA, and he was like, "This is JC from LA, and I just wanted to see if but we got a special show that we want to throw, and it's on this date, and just call me back, blah blah." And I didn't. I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy? I don't give a shit." So I went to Restaurant Depot to buy a bunch of plastic cups and some fucking cheese sauce or some shit, and I was with my business partner, and we were driving back, and I got a text message from um, a friend of ours who worked for Dave Grohl's production company. And she was like, "Dude, if you get a call from an LA number, pick it up." And I looked at my phone, and all of a sudden I get a call from an LA number. And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'll pick it up." And I pick it up, and it's like, "Hey, man, this is JC." And this time he says it's from Dave Grohl's office. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And my partner was like, "Pull over." So I'm on Union Street in Williamsburg, and I pull over, and like he just starts telling me all this shit, and he's just like, "Yeah, we want to do this, and it's between you guys and one other club." And I was just like, "No, no, it's us. You want us to do it. Definitely, blah blah blah. Like Dave will love this place. It's a metal bar. Like he'll love it." And and so then their agent from William Morris had called our booker as well on the other side, like an hour later or something. So we knew it was kind of serious. And then like later that the next day, I think we got a call that it was like, "Okay, this is like their tour manager, the Foo Fighters tour manager, came by to check the place out. This guy Gus Brandt, awesome guy, and like he left, and like within hours, it was like, "Okay, this is happening." He's like, "But you guys can't tell anybody." And we were like,
Like,
"Ugh." So
fuck.
three of us knew about it for a week, and we didn't tell anybody. We told our whole staff to show up that night at 10 o'clock. We didn't tell them why. We had a show that night um, with a band, and we were like, should we cancel it? The Foo Fighters management was like, "Don't cancel it. We don't want to be to blame for screwing up somebody's show." And we were like, "Okay." And they weren't supposed to start until like midnight. So the show that we had was going to be over at 11, and we were gonna tell everybody about the show, like the band members and stuff. And they were a band that had all their gear stolen like a week before. They were from Austin. I can't remember their name. Um, and so we were like, we didn't want to cancel the show for that reason. We were like, we want these guys to have a good show, and we felt really bad. But we did tell them that, the show has to end early and you guys got to go afterwards. So I was going to tell them after the show to stick around to see the show. The guy is on stage, the lead singer is like, he's having a bad tour. I've had this happen to me before. And although he's kind of an asshole, to be honest. And he was like, "Well, I had put up video flyers around the bar saying that we had a private video shoot happening, and that was just to like get everybody out and like realize that they couldn't stick around, whatever." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know who's doing a video, but it better be Guns N' Roses. It better." And he kept after every song, he's just like saying nasty shit about us and stuff. And I was like, "Fuck this guy." So we were like, "Okay, guys, gotta go." And we weren't dicks about it. We let them get their shit out slowly and whatnot. And then the next day, this same guy did a bunch of interviews after the story went, viral about like how we kicked him out and like we treated him like shit and all this stuff. And I was like, "That's not true, dude." But I don't want to focus on that negative shit. Like the show was awesome. They showed up 2 hours late. Um, it was Jay Mascis. It was Joan Jett, Jay Mascis, Kim Gordon, Saint Vincent, Annie, is her name. And the dude from Deer Tick. And it was awesome. I mean, I've like Joan Jett was amazing. Jay Mascis playing those songs was like life-changing.
I
It was
bet.
like so amazing to watch him interpret those songs, and it was just it was wild. And he had like two freaking high watt full stacks in this 900 square foot room. It was agonizingly loud. But it was crazy because I mean there was maybe 100 people there. It started with 300. There was like 300 people, but everybody was old and they had been at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame all night. So not the Rock and Roll, the induction ceremony. So they were like everybody was tired and it took forever for us to get them on stage. But they played for 2 hours. And I mean, which was the second set for them that night. Their crew was, I can't say, I deal with production at Vitus, or I dealt with production at Vitus. So, um, like I often talk about how crews are, and like their crew is just so nice. They let our sound guy do the sound. They were like, "It's your room. There's nothing we can do with this place," which was true. It was on a $200 soundboard that this show was done on.
Yes.
But they were cool as shit, and it was a great experience. I only went in during Drain You because I love that song. And I sat outside the bar for most of the set. We let a bunch of our friends in after they started, which was a good thing because it was not that crowded, and I think having some enthusiastic fans in there was a good thing. We snuck a
Yeah.
photographer in, even though we weren't supposed to. Um, yeah, I mean, and we had one press guy who wrote an article at 4 o'clock in the morning for Brooklyn Vegan, and it went viral. Like I got home at 7:30 in the morning, and when I looked at my phone, it was insane. It had been interpreted into like 1,000 languages or something. It was like there were 2,000 reposts of the
There's yeah.
story. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. It was, it was life-changing for us as a club. We were already doing pretty good at that point, but that was like stratospheric. And yeah, and then everybody wanted to do secret shows afterwards. After that, it was like we just got a series of secret shows for a couple of years. It's stuff that nobody does anymore. Nobody does this shit. It's
No.
like, the midnight load in at midnight, second show after your show that already happened, and it's like super
I,
cool.
I was trying that shit here, like because we have Louder Than Life, and I've got some friends that have a club that I fucking love, dude. It's not a real big room. It's like 500 cap, and I'm like, dude, we could let's get some of these bigger bands. They get done playing Louder Than Life, fucking shoot them over.
Not gonna, never gonna happen.
No.
They all have radius clauses, and Danny Wimmer Presents is going to do those shows if they're going to happen. So that's
Yeah.
that's where you have to go. Like, and they did actually. I think they booked a bunch of small club shows or smaller club shows for some of the more underground bands,
Yeah, they
um,
did.
which was an idea taken from us. But anyway, yeah, it's a pretty cool. It was pretty cool for a while there, like doing that sort of like we had Refused. Refused was my favorite,
I
just because
fucking love.
they did an almost all cover set, and
Wow.
they were so good, and it was so much fun. I can't even like that's how you do it, man. You don't like get up there and play your set again. You get up there and have fun because everybody who's at the show was basically at the show earlier, so they've already seen that set. They want to see like nitty gritty shit. Have some fun, and like Refused was talented enough to get away with it and do it. Where other bands, I don't think that they have the time or the energy. In all fairness, like Against Me was really cool. There were so many. Tech we did one with. Yeah, I can't even. I could go through. I'd have to look up
So
the
many.
list.
Yeah.
But
Well, so
that
Refused
shit's
was my
fun, man.
introduction to Chris
Oh, cool. How's
because
that?
that was Spotlights was on tour with Deftones and Refused,
Oh, right, right, right.
and I was
Cool.
like, oh, who is this band? I fucking love this band.
Yeah,
Spotlights
they're
are
awesome.
great,
Spotlight's
dude.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Totally cool. Yeah, Mario, the guitar player, recorded our record, the
Oh, right on.
band record.
Of course he fucking
Yeah,
did.
yeah. It's I like desperately wanted to work with him, and we made it. We made it work somehow. He's an incredibly busy guy, He
Yeah.
plays in Sisters also, and
Yeah.
he's got a lot of mixing work and a lot of recording work.
But yeah, he did
That he,
the Hero Way album.
yeah,
He did both Hero Way albums, and then got fucking gobs and gobs of other shit. But he's
yeah,
got a
he
really
mixed a
really cool
he mixed a
ear.
Shiner record, which sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Shiner is one of my favorite bands from back in the day. We used to play together all the time. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like they're amazing. The Spotlights people are just fucking great, and they really
Yeah.
spread their tentacles wide. They have a wide range of people that they chill with, that who love them and appreciate their talent.
Yeah, they're all super nice fucking people. The whole band, I love the shit out of them. I like that they are involved in so many other projects. Also, just production or like Sisters is what a cool fucking project that is.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Totally
Yeah,
killer.
fuck.
Yeah. I mean, it's but Mario's like super talented engineer and producer, and like it was funny because I said this in front of his wife who's in Spotlights, and like
Sarah, yeah,
I was like, it sounds like you played my parts. Like I can imagine them sounding this good. And she was like, yeah, I have a feeling, I always feel that way about Spotlights records. You know, and I was just like, yeah, I was like, Mario, are you like going over my bits with like cooler shit? He was like, no, I'm not. It's that good. It's just like I'm just putting places for it, so it sounds good. I was like, well, keep doing it.
yeah,
I don't care if you play on it. Make me sound good. It's
right.
all good, man.
It's cool if you want to play. Like we can
Yeah,
pretend it
yeah.
was
Oh,
me. I
dude,
don't give a
the
shit.
more the merrier, man. Bring it all
Yeah,
on. I love it. Whoever
yeah.
wants to play.
I love the shit out of that.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
whatever, man.
dude, we got to get back to your bands because we are talking about every other band under
You
the
want me to go through the
sun right
list?
now.
The list is
Yeah,
great.
yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Mind Over Matter is the first band. That was started in 1990, and we put out two albums and two EPs. We broke up in 1995, and that was because I started a band with Walter Schreifels from Quicksand, who broke up Quicksand at the time as well. That band was called World's Fastest Car. I did that for a year and a half, or 2 years. And then we broke. I left the band actually, because it was just like Island Def Jam was incredibly difficult to get anything through, and Walter was hyped up as like the next Billy Corgan, the next Kurt Cobain. So he had a lot of
Yeah,
pressure on him as well. He was incredibly prolific. A lot of those songs that he wrote during that time ended up on the Rival Schools record that he didn't put out a record from 1995 until 2001. So like that was like a big chunk of time because he got Quicksand back together in the middle of that. They did demos, nothing happened with that. So anyway, I left World's Fastest Car, which everybody thought I was fucking crazy for. And I started a band called Errortype 11 with my friends. And that we put out two albums and two EPs as well. And then, which that band was signed to Walter's label. And this guy, Matt Pincus, he had the label as well, and Sammy Siegler, called Some Records. So after we broke up, our guitar player left in 2002, no, 2001, and shortly after 9/11. And we changed the name of the band. I said, he walked out of the room, and I said, we're going to change our name. We're going to get signed to a major label in 6 months. Because at the time, Errortype was a band that was just begging to be on Midwest rock radio. And we, like we just had that sound. And I was convinced that my voice, that was the only place my voice could go. Because it was like, it just was too rock ready, radio rock ready for indie kids. Indie kids would just be like, this guy sounds like, what is he, in a fucking Creed band or some shit? And I was like, this is the way I sound. I can't do anything about it. I don't fucking like Creed. Get the fuck out of here. So we changed our name. We went to England for 6 months and we got signed to Geffen. I was right, which was crazy. It was like one of the few times in my life I've actually been right. And so Instruction, uh, we toured in England forever. Then we did a record with Bob Ezrin, who produced Pink Floyd The Wall and all the Alice Cooper records. He's like amazing producer. It was an incredible experience. And then we toured America. So this is good. This is like a full book's worth of stories, the instruction thing. But we toured America. We started with Puddle of Mud, which the singer got arrested at the first show of that tour.
No way.
Um, yep. The second tour we did was Papa Roach. Um, and that was great. That tour was fantastic. And Papa Roach are some of the nicest people ever. Great band. But musically, we were just like we're a post-hardcore band. It's like it was just like why aren't these guys tuned to Z? It was like we were tuned to actually like we were just in drop D. It's not low enough. Not when you're playing with Korn. And the next
Right.
tour was a three doors down. No, three days grace. And then the next tour was Linkin Park's Project Revolution, which was a traveling Lollapalooza style tour. And that was with Korn and The Used and Less Than Jake and Ghostface Killah and Snoop Dogg. Then the next tour we did was Helmet. They did a reunion tour in 2004. And then the next tour we did was Korn, and that was 2 months. And that was Korn, Chevelle, Breaking Benjamin. I mean, it was just like the new metal all-stars. It was like that was my 2004. And it was completely insane. I mean, I couldn't have felt more like a fish out of water. It was a crazy experience.
So let me
So,
ask you this real quick. What did you learn in that time?
uh, that I didn't belong in that world, you know, but yet I did. I mean, I, I don't really know if I can say I learned anything other than I just got like what I will say about it is that I took advantage of the situation and I had a lot of fun. It was like because we knew when we were making the record that we were going to get a soft release, and basically Bob Ezrin was like, he's like, okay, look, like you have this unlimited recording budget. What do you want to do? And I was like, I have this song that like kind of sounds like Led Zeppelin, which I'd love to get like a orchestra and sitar players and a drum circle. He's like, done. Let's do it. So, I mean, we must have spent like 50 grand on that song alone. It's just insane. And it's called Feed the Culture if you go on the instruction record and listen to it. But like and Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction played on it. And like it was fun. I mean, what I learned was that I really wanted to just play music and not worry about business. And that the politics of major labels are affect so many great bands. Um, that there's a lot of great music out there that you've never heard.
Yeah.
And it's because of bad timing or bad label deals or all sorts of stuff. And when you're in one of those bands, you kind of feel like, maybe 20 years down the road, somebody will discover this record and think it's freaking awesome, and then you'll get your chance. And but it's a weird feeling, it's a weird experience. But I mean, I had so many crazy life checked boxes like that were just like I just kept checking the boxes. I'm like, wow, I've never done this before. This is insane. Like, playing Donington, like that was insane. Playing Reading and Leeds festivals in England and having 6,000 people stuffed into a tent because we were so hyped at the time. Being on the inside cover of Kerrang and a full page, like being like all of these like magazines that I would read all the time, The Enemy and like huge Anglophile. And like next thing I know, I'm hanging out with all these people, and it's like it was crazy. I saw the way it worked in England too. It was like very much a small world. It's like very few people are involved, and when you get chosen, they push you, and that's you're going. That's it. Unless you sign to a label in America and they don't let you tour anymore and don't put out your record, but and totally waste all the work you did. Um, but yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from Bob Ezrin working with him and his engineer, Brian Virtue. We did our record at Sunset Sound, not Sunset Sound, at Cherokee Sound on Sunset, where like Van Halen 1, 2, and 3 were recorded, or one and two, and like Fair Warning and like Women and Children First and whatnot. And like that was, just incredible experiences, like I I can't say enough about it. And it's stuff, and I realized at the time, this is stuff that people don't really get to experience. It's like
Right.
1% of people who play music might remotely have an experience like that. So I was very thankful and I loved it. And at the time when I was in instruction, I was also playing in a band called Gay for Johnny Depp, which was a straight up spaz hardcore band, whose records only came out in England. And we only toured in England. And that band actually became the most popular band I ever played in at the time. It was bigger than
I
the major
gotta,
label band.
I've
It
got to
was
go check
crazy.
that out now.
Yeah, I mean, we were selling out like 200 cap clubs, but I mean, it's still like we're selling them out. That's cool.
Yeah.
Instruction couldn't do that, so it was that was, so the whole time I played under a pseudonym so it wouldn't interrupt with like my contract or anything. And that band actually lasted, so we'll get back on my band. So that band lasted till 2011. So while I was doing everything else, I was doing Gay for Johnny Depp because it was like in between stuff we would tour with that band. So we got dropped from Geffen just before our second single came out, and we went and toured England with no label support. And when we got back, it was like, we had some internal problems, we had money problems. So I was like, let's just change the name of the band, and get a new guitar player and whatever. So we changed the name of the band to Johnny Depp, to Godfire's Man. Um, well, Fires at first, then Godfire's Man. And we got signed by our management company, which was through Universal. So we put out two records with that band, and that was with Drew from Into Another, Steve Stanison from Game Phase. Like we had various drummers. Um, and then that band broke up, and then I just did Gay for Johnny Depp for a couple of years, and then Saint Vitus opened. And so, and that was when we started a band called Primitive Weapons. So Gay for Johnny Depp broke up. Primitive Weapons started. Primitive Weapons was more of a metal hardcore band, which I did with Chris Enriquez, and a bunch of other dudes who were fucking fantastic players. And I did that. We put out three albums, two EPs. Uh, and in the meantime of all that, I played in a band called Unwed, which was with Jason from Hot Water Music, um, and who's an old friend, and his wife was a singer. Um, and I also did a band called Ageist, which I played bass in, which is another great record, kind of Hot Snake style stuff, but really, really good. And now I do Ben. So that's that's the whole list. I don't really, Errortype reformed. We did a couple bunch of shows. Mind Over Matters reformed a bunch of times just to do like various uh, reunion shows on Long Island and whatnot. But yeah, that's the whole list. And currently, Ben is the first band I've been the lead singer in since 2011. So was a big step back for me to get behind the mic, just because I just like in 2011 when Gay for John Depp broke up, I was just like, I just think the world is telling me something that they just like don't like my voice, and I should just stop singing and just be a songwriter, So I don't know, it's just one of those things, and I think purposely my voice is not mixed as loud as it used to be in past records. With this record, I was one of my rules with Mario. I was like, just kind of bring it in like a shoegaze record, like make it, or like a Radiohead record, where it's like part of the music, as opposed to being like all up front and it should be on radio and like, because that's the way
But
every engineer mixes me like that. And it's because I
but
don't
they
use
mix
auto
so many
tune.
and they mix so many people like that. And I like when vocals are, I'll call them buried for lack of a better term, but I like what you said about it being more the voice is an instrument, right? And it should be in there with the instrument, especially in shoegaze with that being mixed so low. I fucking
Oh
love
yeah,
that,
but that's
dude.
part of the shoegaze aesthetic. And
Yeah,
shoegaze is basically an aesthetic. That's
yeah.
all it is. There's very little songwriting. This whole shoegaze renewal thing, It's like, oh, play two chords with delay and reverb, maybe a change for the chorus, and everything's like fucking washed out. And I have a theory about shoegaze, and the reason it's had such a huge resurgence, besides the fact that Nothing, the band Nothing, brought it back in a huge way, which is awesome. But there's always been these nouveau shoegaze bands. It's been Fleeting Joys, High Spire, Ariel, like there's just tons of them. And but Nothing was really like a great band. They had a good label behind them, and they really like brought it back in a huge way. But the all these like sort of newer bands, it's like the reason it's so popular is because it's really easy to make on a laptop. The drums don't really change that much. You got all the effects you want on a laptop in Logic or Pro Tools, and you can make it yourself in your bedroom. It's
Yeah.
really easy. And so like that was a little bit like that song Passion's a Great Misfortune is a little bit like I have a extreme passion for shoegaze music. I've been into it since it was birthed in in the 90s, in the late 80s, early 90s. And I've always loved it. The Ride has always been one of my favorite bands. I love them and Lush the most because they were kind of had a rock element to them, which a lot of shoegaze bands really didn't, and that's what Nothing
Don't.
has as
Yeah.
well, I think. Um, and they actually had songs, which I think is something that's missing from the aesthetic. And so like when I wrote Passions, I was like, I know this, I wanted it to sound like it was right off a Siamese Dream, which is really hard to do on a, $1,000 budget. But with modern technology, you can get pretty close. Um, so yeah, it's like, I was like, Mario, what can I do to make this sound like Siamese Dream? He's like, add six fucking layers of fuzz. I was like, okay, man. And I just kept picking up different guitars and like adding, just playing it. Like, all right, cool, man. I'll play it up here now. But I thought it came out really good. And it captured what I wanted it to be, which was a shoegaze song with an actual song. And
Yeah.
like I did, yeah, it was so hard for me to sing like that. Oh my God. Like all the singing I do is so very histrionic. It's like, like I'm all up here, and I was just like, it's like, this is how you do this? Like, I don't know if I could do it, man, but I did it. I managed it.
You, you did it. You
Hard to
totally
do
did it.
live. Hard to do
Yeah.
live.
Is that song? Is that the song you're like, oh, we got to do this live? I am not looking forward to this.
I just sang it. I just sing it the way I want to sing it. I don't even try to do the shoegazy vocal because it's like I'm not going to get over the music. And if you watch a lot of shoegaze bands, they can't pull off that vocal live.
Right.
It's like unless they have like really great monitors, but just on a regular system in a small club, it's so hard because they all want to be at like 150 decibels, but you can't hear the monitors.
Right.
So, unless you're an incredibly skilled and experienced singer, it's really hard to sing in key and it's really hard to do harmonies like that. I've seen a couple bands pull it off, but you're not going to get the sound system that My Buddy Valentine's playing on. It's just
Right.
not going to happen. So it's a struggle. So I just kind of I go up high in my comfortable register, and I don't even bother. Nobody's doing harmonies with me live. Nobody else sings in the band. So, I'm just like I kind of do whatever I want to do. And we as a band, we tend to improv quite a bit. Like every time we play, it's a little bit different. There's a song called We Are Not Alone, which is about aliens, which is fucking awesome. And it's like 7 minutes long, and it's got this whole jam part at the end of it, which we do different every show. And it's super
Was
fun.
did you? I just watched earlier today. I watched a live video of Ben, and it was 30 minutes. It was at Saint Vitus. Um,
We did that song, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow, you sat through that whole show. Good for you.
I
Thanks.
I really enjoy the band. Um, when Chris sent it to me, I was like, oh, I'll check it out. And I'm like, oh, I fucking dig this. So I didn't hear the album. I'm like, I gotta find something. And I'm like, oh, a fucking 30 minutes? Fuck yeah. I've got like you don't see it, but I'm standing up right now, but I have two chairs. I have one for me and then another one for my cat, and she fucking lays right next to me, and when she wants me to pet her, she just grabs my hand and I'm like, okay, and I can focus and like watch fucking whatever I'm doing.
Cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never been able to sit through that particular video you're talking about, but that's pretty common for me that I can't do it. That's also Chris didn't play in that. That was with Jeff,
Right.
our original
Yep.
drummer. Um, and yeah, I just I love the looseness of this band. It's fun. I trust the
That's
guys
what
I'm playing with. It's
that's
also
what
like
music
as
should be, though, right? It
yeah,
should be
yeah, no,
fun.
I agree. Like, I don't want to get up there and be all uptight about who's doing what and what's going on. It's just like I know you're going to play in the right key. I know I trust you that you're going to play something cool, and I just let it go. And I got to say, like from the very first show we ever played, which was with opening for Empire State Bastard, which is the singer of Biffy Clyro and Dave Lombardo from Slayer, playing
I
drums,
fucking love
and
Dave.
this guy Mike Van Art from a band called Ocean Size, who are fucking awesome. And like I couldn't really believe the reaction we got from the get-go. It was like, and it's not the amount of people that are watching us, it's just the like the applause and the like they're just the sheer reaction when we stop. And I don't like this is the only band I've ever played in where I don't talk between bands, sing songs. I have all these like instrumental things that I do and I do them different every time. And I really felt like the crowd immediately connects with that. They can feel it and understand it, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Like something cool is going to happen now. I think. I mean, I don't know. I can't get into everybody's
Well,
head. People could
you
be
know,
bored
I think
shitless.
I think there's another part to it, right? There are parts in the songs that they have a very familiar feel
Yeah.
that a crowd connects with. You know, like as I'm listening, I'm like, oh, this kind of has a. It's not quite quicksand in the music, but it has that feel to it. You know what I mean? And this reminds me of something that you would hear in like the early '90s from the grunge arena. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
and
dude, I love all this like these young kids, which is awesome. Like these all these young kids in bands who are doing like 90s style grunge stuff.
yeah,
And I find it so funny, and this is going along with the corporate algorithm thing, where it's like I'll see like, yeah, this band does the 90s better than anybody. I'm like, no, 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 dude. I'm actually from the 90s. And actually what I'm doing is exactly it. It's like it's not a museum piece, but it could be.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
this is authentic. You want the real deal? Here you go, man. That it's yeah, I agree with you. Like I mean, and everything I do is always going to have a little quicksand in it. Like we have a new song that's not on the new album that's very quicksand, but it's also like, it's where I come from. And I played with in bands with two of the members of Quicksand. So, Tom was in Instruction and Walter and I have been friends and played together for, 30 years, whatever. But like it's they were my favorite band, in the early 90s. So it's only natural that that would happen. So
yeah.
I don't I have no problem with hearing that at all. There's one song that I know that
I
is
fucking love them, dude.
incredibly
So
there's one song on Perpetual Architecture that's like it sounds a lot like the first Queens of Stone Age record or something that could be on that.
okay,
And and when I wrote it, and I was just like, this is kind of Queens of the Stone Age, but I was like, yeah, fuck it. And like so I made it an acronym that was lending itself to like a mysterious, like it's like a little nugget, we're not exactly Taylor Swift, so the nuggets aren't going to be looked at, as closely. But yeah, like it's like I named it something that is a reference to the fact that I know it sounds like Queens of Stone Age. Like I'm not kidding myself,
right.
but it's fun, it's fun. I think, the rest of the record has elements of shit, but it's pretty, it's very me, it's very original. And it's modern sounding, like I didn't want it to sound like it was straight out of the 90s.
Right.
But the songwriting, of course, is always going to be a little bit of that, you know?
Well, and I think something that's really hard to do for a lot of bands is you touch on influences, right? Like, oh, this is a part of my life, but you don't just rip off like a whole fucking quicksand song and go, here it is. You know what I
Oh
mean?
no. Well, that was
Um,
Fireside when Fireside first started. You ever heard Fireside?
I
Yeah.
haven't, no.
they're a Swedish band. Their first couple of records were literally they sounded like a Quicksand cover band. They sounded like they were doing Quicksand, but like with different songs. Like it was like, oh, this is a new Quicksand record, but no, it's Fireside from Sweden, and they got signed to by Rick Rubin to American Records in America. They did a record with Rick Rubin, and it sounded like it sounded like Quicksand. You should look it up on Spotify. You'll love it. And then they eventually, by like their fourth or fifth record, they had changed their sound a bit, and they were just incredible. They were always incredible, but then they really got into they came into their own, and they put out a record with it's an Italian or Latin name. I think it's Italian. Um, and then they put out a record called Elite, and then there's a series of records in the late 90s, which are just fucking incredible. You should totally check out Fireside. Amazing band.
I'm looking them up right now.
But listen to their early records. It's so funny. It sounds just like Quicksand. It's crazy. Which was
Ooh,
very common
Amini
of this.
Denor is the one you were talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that record. That record's incredible.
Hell yeah.
It's like,
Cool. I'm gonna check it out.
oh yeah, you got a lot of records to listen to, man. I'll give you some
Yeah.
homework.
Dude, one of my favorite like quicksand memories is not like a memory from the 90s. It's like a recent memory. Um, a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for, as of today, like 25 years. Uh, Spotlights were playing a show at Quicksand in Columbus. And I'm like, hey, Reagan, you want to go fucking see Quicksand and Spotlights? He's like, hell yeah, let's fucking go. So we, road trip up to see him. And he fucking, he loves Quicksand. Like, I like Quicksand and I will never turn them off and I'll listen to them. But he is like, loves Quicksand. So we go up, Spotlights, of course, fucking crush. And there's nothing crazy, but we're on Sergio's side of the stage, and Quicksand gets done, and I asked one of the crew, I was just like, "Hey, can I get a set list?" I let everyone else, like blah blah blah. She grabs a set list and fucking hands it to me, and I was like, "Kick ass!" And I was like, "Here, Reagan," and he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, set list is for you." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" So every time I go to his house, he's got this room that's all fucking music, and that fucking set list is like front and center. Just like,
That's
fuck yeah.
awesome. I got a set list up here. Oh, this this is from Oasis at Wetlands in 1994. Speaking of set
That's
lists,
oh, dude, I've
that thing has been
literally,
with me. That thing's been with me forever. 31
I've
years.
got, I've got them fucking all over the place. There, well, I got a Cannibal Corpse one over there,
Awesome.
like, because I'm a fucking nut, dude. Like I was at that show. Can I have the set list? Yeah, here you go.
Ah, that's yeah. I think set lists are cool. They're like, if you can get them, it was like
Yeah,
that Oasis one. We like, I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and like, she kind of like sweet talked her way into getting it, and then somehow I got it. I guess I got it in the divorce. I don't know, but
yes.
yeah. But it's been with me forever. It's like every business I've owned, it's somewhere in the business. Like every job I've had. Um, it's like I love it, and I was as big I was it's crazy because I was as big an Oasis fan as I was a Quicksand fan in the 90s. And so it's like, I got the set list and I got to play with my singer of my favorite band, which is Quicksand. So, I lived the
It
dream.
doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't, man. It's wild. That whole thing, like when Walter called me about playing in a band with him, I was like, why is the singer of my favorite. I mean, I was friends with him, but like, our bands played together and whatnot. I was like, why is the singer of my favorite band calling me to be in a band with him? It was just like next level weird, but
Yeah,
awesome, you know,
that's
like super
like,
cool.
oh,
Yeah,
fuck yeah.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
there's now you guys played a show pretty recently with Psalm and Hero Way.
We're playing it actually,
Oh,
November 21st, I think. Yeah.
oh,
But you can talk about Psalm and Hero and
I both
Phantom
those
Eye.
bands.
They're
I
all
fucking
awesome.
yes. Yeah. Oh,
I'm
you're
psyched,
absolutely
man.
right.
I'm so psyched to play that show. I mean, I wish we were doing more. Yeah, all those bands rip, and it's like Psalm isn't really like I wouldn't. I don't know. Like it's kind of a local show in a way. Like I would say we're the most locally band that's playing. Um, but none of us are local bands. Like we're all, touring acts, like national
Yeah.
touring acts. But it musically, it's an incredibly strong show. Like we played, actually, who we played with recently was Idle Airs, which is Sean from Coalesce's new project. It's on Relapse. They were insanely good. There was like 20 of them on stage. They had two keyboard players with like it looked like an internet cafe on stage. They, it was wild. The guitar player is a producer, this guy Josh Barber. So they sounded phenomenal. I was almost embarrassed going on after them. I mean, going on before them. Sorry. Like, I was like, we're just a
But
three piece, you know. But
whatever.
they were great. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been lucky. We played a lot of good. We played with S Friends Rust. Um, who the fuck else we play with? Uh, there's a lot of reuniting bands that we played with. But yeah, I mean, we've been pretty lucky to play with a lot of really really good bands. And luckily when Vitus was open, I was able to get us on some appropriate shows to sort of which is always good because it's a good self-confidence builder.
Yeah.
And we played the songs out before we recorded them, which was also good. But I mean, that was 2 years ago. It took us 2 years to get this record out, which has
Wow.
been extremely frustrating. Um, but yeah, it was all like I spent a year with a label that was going to put it out, and it was all like sort of semi big time stuff, and it just fell through. And so I was like, fuck, I wasted a year with like not having this record out, and then we talked to a bunch of labels, and everybody's like, "Oh, I got my schedule for next year all set up." And a lot of these indie labels, like they really depend on reissues to make money.
Yeah.
And it's rough for them to put out new bands. And Austin from Mind Over Matter he's an anomaly, man. Like he loves making the product,
He
and
does.
and he does a
He
great
takes
job.
so much fucking
Oh,
care on what he does, dude. Like
it's
I've
so
followed
beautiful.
him for probably, God, I gotta think, probably since '09, so about 16 years.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he's awesome. I mean, I saw the job he did with the Twin, um, and I didn't want to step on the Twins' toes or Brian, the singer's toes, by approaching Austin with the Ben record. But Brian, like, he was just like, dude, just send me the fucking record. I'm gonna send it to Austin. I was like, all right, cool. And then the records wound up coming out back to back, which which is awesome. Like I hope people discover Ben through Twin and Twin through Ben,
Vice
and
versa. Yeah.
like we all kind of simpatico together because we're all friends, and it's all we share drummers, and it's like we all rehearsed in the same practice spaces. And there's like it's so funny, like I wrote the Ben bio, which I'll send to you actually, with the record. And it's like I wrote about the idea of lifers and guys my age who are still playing, and like there's any you kind of like tell yourself like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Like I got bills to pay, I got kids and dogs to deal with and shit, and it's just like what am I doing? Like this is like it's taking time away from all that stuff, which is relatively irresponsible, to be honest. But I can't help myself. It's just like what I do, and I look around at the guys I share practice space with. Um, he's not going to eat them, Charlie. Sorry, the dog's got my shoes. Um, and
I love dogs.
it's amazing to see. And the thing is, like all those bands, all those guys, they're all making music better than they ever did, but they're never going to get the attention that they got when they were younger. And it's like I always think that that's a shame, but it's just the way the it's just the way the world works. Like labels aren't willing to invest in people who are in their 50s who are like, oh, I can't go on that tour because, I got a job. Like, I can't just leave.
Yeah,
That
I
was
got
the
to
one
pay
thing
my
about
fucking mortgage. Like, what the hell?
that's the one thing about owning a music venue is that I have that freedom actually to do that. And it's, like, well, granted, Vitus, uh-oh, dog's in trouble. But it's not Vitus isn't a building anymore. It's just it's a company, but it was great to have that freedom and to be surrounded by music all the time. So it's kind of and it was also what was cool about touring and owning a music venue, especially in New York, is you got to see the other venues in of the same size in other cities. And it was like, oh, this is why everybody loves playing in New York. It's because like like you're playing like a bowling alley in Pennsylvania somewhere, like, and all those places are cool. And I feel like in the past 2 years, it's gotten more and more VFW because the a lot of the music scene has gone back to the suburbs
Yeah,
because people can't afford to live in Brooklyn and be in a band. So,
it. I
if
think it's a lot of the major cities, right? Doing like that. That's
yeah.
happening too.
Yeah, like a lot
Um,
of people moved to Brooklyn to play music and then they just wound up getting stuck. So then they moved upstate, which is a little bit cheaper, or they moved to Portland, which is now like more expensive than it used to be, or Austin, all the hipster cities,
yeah,
or Berlin. Berlin's another one, but Berlin's got a rent cap on it, so like it's great for artists to move there. But yeah, it's interesting to see the way it's come back around to the suburbs and like a lot of VFW halls and so the shows are cheaper. It's like the overhead in New York alone. This is something that if you want to, I don't know if you want to talk about Vitus or music venues and stuff, but like there's a lot of controversy about the price of concert tickets now, and even for smaller shows, like in places the size of that Vitus was, it's like I'm not paying $30 or $35 or $40. The bottom line is, especially after the pandemic, everything went through the roof because
yep.
people didn't play for 18 months or 2 years. So that means management, booking agents, and the bands, nobody was making any money. So when everybody came back, everybody toured at once and they all wanted to make up for that money that they were losing. And everybody tried the streaming thing that really didn't catch on. Um, and it's when you look at a ticket price, the band essentially sets the ticket price by how much money they want in a guarantee.
Their guarantee. Yeah,
And then, and agents, their job is to push for more money for the band. And then they make a percentage of that. So the more money the band gets paid, the more money the agent makes. So everybody's incentivized to make more money. Sorry.
you're
And
good.
yeah, it's the dog is barking. I don't know if you got a noise gate on there or something. But so basically it kind of works in a way where really the bands aren't to blame because they're not making any money on record sales. So the only
Right.
way they make money is for it shows. So it's kind of like, what do you expect? Like as a consumer, I get it, but you're willing to pay $500 to see an arena show, right? Like you
Oh, you're
can't
willing to
pay.
pay $7 or $10 for that Starbucks drink too, right?
Right,
Like,
exactly, exactly. And then think about the experience you're getting from a show. You're paying 25, $30 for a local show, not a local show, but like a touring band that's coming through. And they blame the venues. So like, oh, the venue, it's like, nah, man, that's not the way it works. Like we make a small percentage of the ticket price, but all the money we make is from alcohol sales. Nobody drinks anymore.
right.
Like everybody stopped drinking. Alcohol sales are down by 20% across the country, which is a good thing. I'm not going to say, for people's health, it's good, but it affects everybody's bottom line. And bring it to New York, where the overhead is just outrageous. I mean, the amount we pay for rent, and then there's the issue of insurance. Now, my partners, if they watch this, are gonna be laughing right now. They're all gonna be smirking, going like, "Oh, Artie's gonna start talking about insurance." But insurance is insane. It's like 20% of your gross.
Yeah.
And like I was like, why? Like during the pandemic when the inflation went up, insurance went up. Like because of inflation. Like why the fuck is inflation affecting insurance? It's not a product that I buy.
But
It's not being trucked in.
but it's
Like
not so like inflation only affected insurance because the insurance guys realized they could charge more and make more
right,
money.
right. And then it'll never go down. It'll
Right.
never go down. And for events-based stuff, because New York City is just, I mean, not New York City, but America is just a litigious society, right? So everything is based on, there's only a few ways to get rich, right? Sue people, you know, get hit by a car, by a city bus or something, be a tech genius or I don't know, marry a rich person and get divorced. I don't know. Like but America is such a litigious society that like insurance companies just charge through the roof because they're constantly having to deal with bullshit.
Yep.
And it's the down to me, insurance is the downfall of the American economy. And it's like it's all a fucking scam. The whole thing is a fucking scam. And it's like they're never there when you need them. It's just like they'll make any excuse, any excuse. This goes for healthcare as well.
But
And
I'm
it's
100% with you because I'm dealing with it right now. So we were going to do my wife and I were going to go out on Headbangers Boat this year. Love to go out, we love the music, whatever. Well, in August, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So August 4th, diagnosed with breast cancer. August 29th, double mastectomy, no
oh
travel,
wow.
right?
Jeez, I'm
So
sorry.
it's, I mean, it's part of life. She goes, hey, like, they're going to go. Are you okay with that? I'm like, they'll get more time with you? Like, that's the fucking important thing. You know
If
what I
it's
mean?
either that or you die, yeah.
Right. Right. Like, I, I'm good with it. Like, you're my wife. I love you. The boobs, they're great, but we'll just get some fake ones. I don't care.
Yeah.
Uh, but so, so we send in all our shit for like the travel insurance and blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I think I sent it in August 11th. We are November 2nd. And they've got papers from the surgical oncologist, from the diagnosing oncologist, from the fucking reconstructive surgeon. Like, and I just got an email that said it's delayed. I'm like, no shit, it's fucking delayed. You motherfuckers, I've given you everything you want. I paid you like when I bought these fucking tickets a year ago now. Like I paid you so in case something happens, and now something happens, and you're like, yeah, I don't know.
Ooh. Was there insurance on those tickets that you could have bought?
That I
Yeah.
bought the insurance. That's literally what I'm dealing with.
I mean, that's what the insurance is for.
Right.
Wow. Wow, that's low. Wow.
Like you
Woo.
motherfuckers. See if I
Damn.
ever fucking like I'm just like God. I'll just wait till last minute and buy all my shit so I make sure I go. Like
Wow. Wow. I'm
so
sorry to hear that, man. That's rough.
it, it's whatever. Fuck the insurance companies. Like I despise them, dude.
Yeah. I mean, but
So
my point of that was just like, when people start saying shit about a venue, it's just like you have no idea. You have no idea how much money is sacrificed just to be open.
yeah,
And then on top of that, bringing in, the bands that people want to see, because New York is the most competitive market in the country, in the world. So it's really I know that like with there's all the AI concerns and all this other stuff. I really feel strongly that live music is going to be there forever, and people are always going to want to go and have that visceral experience. You know, I think the only problem with it is that it's been the same sort of paradigm forever. It's like since the 19 whatever, 1920s, it's been like band on stage, band plays set, people go and see it, people move around, like whatever the case might be. And, with these younger generations, they have to be entertained a lot. And this is another philosophy I have about why hardcore has such a huge resurgence is because it's tailor-made for ADD kids who grew up on screens, who have to participate constantly, have to have something to do constantly, which will be moshing and stage diving. And they have to have a TikTok moment, which everything is filmed constantly. So it's like, oh, that's me on stage. Look, I've seen like posts on Instagram where it's like featured moshers. Like, really? Like, I, you know, I stopped moshing because I didn't have health insurance for years, and it'd be like, if I lose a tooth, I'm not, I can't pay for this. It's not
Right.
worth it for me. And honestly, like, after like seeing Fugazi a bunch of times and stuff, like you kind of realize like this is stupid. But it's, to each his own. If somebody wants to, everybody can have their own emotional release as long as it's honest. I think crowd killing is really dumb. I think it's mental illness out in the open. I think it's unchecked mental illness out in the open. I don't understand it because when you go to a show, it's like everybody's in the underground, right? We're all these weirdos, and we're all and music nerds, to be honest. Like if you're there, you're a
Yeah.
fucking music nerd. And like it's like, why are you beating people up who
It
just
should be
like
communal.
I was always there for the music, but I
Yeah.
can relate to it a little bit because in the late 80s when I would go see thrash shows and stuff, I went to this kind of famous club called Sundance on Long Island, and we would stage dive, and then, a couple weeks later you'd see us in the video on Headbangers Ball. It'd be like, oh, that's me in the Nuclear Assault video. So it was like there was stuff like that, but now it's just like turbocharged. Like kids stage diving and moshing when there's no music playing. Like what is that?
Yeah.
Like it's just dumb. And but again, I'm not here nobody should try and tell a bunch of emotionally disturbed teenagers what to do. So it's pointless. Like ask any teacher. Uh, it's, like, but I just like it's interesting, but I do feel like hardcore is tailor-made for this younger generation with low attention spans, short attention spans, like 2-minute songs, everything's a mosh part, everything's an immediate gratification reaction,
Well, yeah,
and
and
it's
the
like, but
yeah,
it's
the
awesome.
hardcore
I
shows
want
are
to finish this. I want to finish this by saying that it's awesome because it perpetuates the scene further. And whenever you get the bottom stuff, people build on that and they make great stuff. And who knows? We'll get the next burn. Like look at Turnstile. Turnstile didn't turn into Turnstile overnight.
right.
They developed as a band over the years. And they got better as songwriters and they changed their sound. And like that's what, the good bands, that's what they do. And you can start with the simple chugga chugga mosh parts, but the people who really, really want to write songs, they're going to do it.
They
And
develop.
it's
Yeah.
it's great. And they play in real bands with a drummer and guitar players, and they rehearse in a basement. And it's like, or wherever. And those are the people that are going to perpetuate the music nerd underground because and that's great, and vinyl will continue to sell and people will continue to come to Saint Vitus, whatever that is, in the future. And it's like that's exciting to me. So as much as I make fun of it, it's a lot of get off my lawn bullshit because I'm old.
Yeah.
But I can see from a psychological level, from a like how the younger generation is tailor made. Hardcore is tailor made for it. And it's awesome. It's awesome. Nobody get hurt. Please don't get hurt.
Now, and those hardcore shows, they're fun to go and like watch the kids. Everyone's like, "You going in the pit?" Like, no, I'm old. I'm gonna be against the fucking wall. Like, just yeah. Oh, that was a good fucking set. Yeah, dude. What'd you think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking dope. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Like,
you
hey,
know what's funny when there's that much activity and stuff, like I love seeing those bands play when nobody reacts. How good are they
yeah,
then? Because that's the real testament. Like Mind Over Matter was a band that never had mosh parts. We were a hardcore band that didn't have mosh parts. And it was like it's actually like I was basically ripping Voivod really hard in a hardcore context, but because I didn't play as well as Voivod, it kind of came out as that. And it was interesting when we do reunion shows, the kids are so confused. Like the younger kids are like, "Oh, I really love this band. I love this band, but I can't react to it. I don't know what to do to it." Like what do I techno dance? Like, it's funny to watch. And I'm just like, no, you listen to it. Try
Yeah.
listening instead of reacting. It's like not everything has to be an immediate gratification reaction thing. Not everything. You can sit back and listen to it and you can be influenced by it. I mean, that's always what I did. It's crazy. Like when, even back in the day, I remember there's a guy named Chris Trainer who was in a band called Fountainhead. Fountainhead later became Texas is the Reason. And like, well, some of the members did. And like the drummer went on to Orange 9mm. He was in Glassjaw. The bass player went on to Texas the Reason. Um, Singer became a raver and eventually OD'd. And Chris Trainer was the guitar player. Chris Trainer became the guitar player of Orange 9mm. He was Orange 9mm. And then him and Chaka. And then he left that, became the guitar player of Helmet. And then he left that and became the guitar player of Bush, which he's been the guitar player for 25 years. I remember watching him play, and this is like hardcore shows at this place called The Angle, which was a shitty goth club, which nobody went to until Nirvana hit, and then everybody went. And I remember watching them play, and I would watch him. He was using all these chords that I'd never seen before. And I'd go home and I'd try and play the chords, and I'd write entire songs around them. I mean, like it was crazy. And like that was that visceral experience of seeing a band play live and like how life-changing it can be. I mean, I would put those experiences up with seeing Fugazi, which was completely life-changing for anybody who had the opportunity to see them in the late 80s or early 90s. I mean, it was like just unbelievable. But, like to have that energy, but still have songs that are, you know, uh, well crafted and still indie, but not hardcore,
Yeah.
but still have the energy of hardcore. And there's a myriad of bands who took the energy of hardcore, Rage Against the Machine, and took that to the mainstream. I don't think anybody knew how to react to Rage Against the Machine. They were like, "What is this?" It's like I'm a Nine Inch Nails fan, but like I like this too, and I'm like a Guido who drives like a Range Rover or like an
Yeah.
F-150 with a army sticker on the back and like, and you would see all that shit and it's like I didn't understand it, but they were blown away by this energy of the scene that it's just explosive and it still is. And it's funny, I was listening to this podcast with this Tommy Cargan from Silent Majority, which is a Long Island band, very famous Long Island band. And he was talking about how like back in the 90s, how the oldest person at a show was like an old person was 25.
Yeah.
Like all the guys who played in the band in the hardcore bands in the 80s were in their mid 20s. And like the oldest guy to show would be like 30. There was this guy, Punk Rock Pete, who would sit in the back and read a newspaper in between bands. And like it was like he was so old to us. And what Tommy was saying is something I didn't even think about is hardcore was such a young genre that the people who started playing it in the early 80s were literally only in their like maybe 30 by 1992 or 3, right? Because
Yeah.
they were teenagers. So it's like it's a young, such a young genre. And I always say like, oh, hardcore's a youth culture. It's like should be a youth culture. The kids should be playing it. Now, all those people who were in their early 20s at that time, now they're in their 50s and 60s,
Yeah. It's
right?
us.
So you go to see Youth of Today, and Ray Cappo is 60 years old. Schreifels is 56, 57. It's like it's crazy to me. They're older. This genre is older than the oldies were in the 90s. So
Yeah.
50s music, which is like doo-wop and Buddy Holly and shit, that shit was played on the oldie stations, and we'd be like, "Oh my God, this shit's so old." You know? Hardcore's older than that now.
Yeah.
It's older. And it's so interesting that like stuff like that developed into rock and roll, whereas hardcore has just repeated itself over and over again, right?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
a it's a youth culture.
It really, yeah.
It just goes from generation to generation, and it hasn't really changed much. And I think it's a genre that shouldn't change much. To me, like Madball is hardcore. And if you go beyond that, it's not hardcore anymore. Like there's no progressing beyond what hardcore is because then all of a sudden it's not hardcore anymore. It's just rock or it's
Yeah.
alternative music, right? Or post-hardcore. And post-hardcore is a really interesting genre to even try and decipher because it's a lot of things. But it's basically it's hardcore kids who learned how to write songs. That's what post-hardcore is. That's what emo was too. And and it's like it's just it's interesting to me when people try and decipher all that shit. And it's just like that. It's just, it's just music, but hardcore is hardcore, dude. Like I remember we used to call Mind Over Matter progressive hardcore because that's what Burn was to me. And Burn was the best band, the perfect band at creating hardcore and like with jazz chords and progressive riffs. Like they had all the energy, all the sounds. They would have hardcore fast parts. It was fucking awesome. But like very few bands have been able to recreate that.
Right.
And it's just interesting to me. Like so when I listen to Turnstile, that's not hardcore. Like it unless you're playing Madball riffs, you're not hardcore. Like that's this band
That
Haywire, that's
that
hardcore.
always, yeah, that always confused me about Turnstile. Everyone's like they're hardcore, but like when I, to me, that they're not hardcore either. Like
Yeah, but
there are
the
too
energy
many
is hardcore.
elements. A
The
hundred
energy is
percent.
hardcore. And
And
and they come from the scene.
yeah,
And so that immediately gives them cred. And I think it's great. Like I think there's a bunch of hardcore kids out there or young kids who are getting to hear well-written songs. So they're going to take that and they're going to start bands and try and do stuff that's different. The same way that when I heard Burn and I heard Quicksand, I was like, "Oh, this is like it's not like metal like I was used to listening to, which I couldn't play technically. I wasn't good enough. And it's not hardcore, which I really didn't want to play. So it has those elements, but it's easier to play than metal, and it's better than hardcore. So
yep.
you know what I mean? So like there's songwriting, which is really what I focused on was songwriting. And but with the all that shit's rolling around in your head, and that's the way it comes out, you know? It's interesting and it's cool to see. It's cool to see, man. I'm fucking psyched. It like
I
I
I
hope
love
I
the
hope I'm 70
evolution
years
of
old.
music,
Yeah.
right? Like I, 80s and 90s, I remember like if you listen to metal, you listen to metal. If you listen to punk, you listen to punk. It didn't really cross over a whole lot, save for like Motorhead. Of course, Motorhead was kind of opened everyone up to all of these other styles. And now you see a lot more like mixed genre bills and people who are really
Right.
open to a lot of like different styles of music, not so
Well, I
like,
think it's interesting because I think that started with the iPod Shuffle. And when the iPod Shuffle came out, people would just pack their iPod Shuffle with songs they liked. They didn't care what genre it was. And sometimes it would be randomly stuffed by iTunes. And, it's like, and they would listen to it in random order. So they weren't listening to albums, they were listening to this shit in random order. So you get a pop song next to a hip hop song, next to a metal song, and everything was kind of mixed up. And I think that was like sort of the genesis. I mean, if you listen to new metal is rap and metal mixed together. So
yeah,
that's, like that started with like Judgment Night and shit like that. And I feel like that's only progressed and genres are just, they're not that important anymore. They're
nope,
not. It's just what's a shame about that is that there's an identity to all this stuff. So like metalheads dress a certain way, hardcore kids dress a certain way. I think a lot of that stuff has gone away. Like I dress in I dress like a member of Metallica in 1989. That's and Justice for All tour. That's literally what I look like all the time. So, it's like, and that was sort of an evolution in my life, but it's interesting to see the way that people take the lifestyle fashion. So like I think like hardcore and hip hop have a lot related to it because they are lifestyle genres. It's like
mm-hmm.
you dress a certain way, you look a certain way, you not think a certain way, but you're supposed
But
to.
kind of, right? Like
Right. I
it's
mean, and punk rock, and I've always said like stuff like the punk rock and hardcore and all shit, it shouldn't have a dress code and it shouldn't have a thought process that you're supposed to think. You should
right.
be introduced to all these things. Like when I was coming up, I would go to a place called ABC No Rio on the Lower East Side, and I got introduced to a lot of left-wing politics that I had not been introduced to growing up on Long Island. And it changed my perspective in a huge way. And there was no room for anything but left-wing politics in punk rock at that time. Like it was no racism, no homophobia, no misogyny. You did not fuck with that. And I think that was for good reason. You know, why would anybody want to be a racist? Um, but yeah, I
Well,
mean,
the
it's like,
only
you know,
things this is the argument I have with my kids all the time. They're like, but it's so bad because I see, this on the right, that on the left, and I'm like, you are only hearing the loudest people. When you have a
and the most
conversation,
extreme, and the most
right,
extreme.
right, fuck the
We lost all your viewers after after the Limp Bizkit story.
oh shit. Artie, I actually I gotta rock and roll. We've been talking for
Yeah, me
like
too,
two
man. I gotta
hours,
go cook
dude.
dinner.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate you. I've had a lot of fun. I would if you're up for it, I'd love to do it again, maybe a little
Yeah,
bit
of
after
course,
the
man.
album comes out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I'll hopefully have some good news about some other stuff in my life at that point. So it'll be we'll have stuff to talk about.
Hell
It'll
yeah.
be good.
Well, Artie, dude, thank you so much. I hope you have a great fucking night.
You too, man. Take care.
Thanks, brother. See ya.